Okay, if you'd please be seated, we'll begin. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Fred Starr from the Central Asia Caucasus Institute here in Washington and in Stockholm. I want to welcome you to this session, which is focused on the 2050 the Kazakhstan 2050 strategy, which the President issued in January of this year. This document follows on a 1997 document, Kazakhstan 2030, the goals of which have been officially achieved, and therefore this new document has been prepared and issued. I would characterize it not as a plan. It's not Soviet planning. It's really a vision. It doesn't go into a lot of details of financing and things like that, which you might be interested in, but it does present a very clear vision covering all the main fields of endeavor, including education and culture, economy, and so forth, and it's very much worth your attention. We will begin right away with a presentation by Congressman Robert Aderholt. He is from Haleyville, Alabama, and he's in his 9th term, which says something serious about his activity. He is chairman of the House Caucus on Kazakhstan, and he is also, and don't miss this, a member of the House Committee on Appropriations. That's where the action is, ladies and gentlemen. He is also a member of the Helsinki Committee. Congressman Aderholt. Oh, there you are.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm happy to have a chance to join you this morning. I understand some of my colleagues were able to join you for the breakfast this morning, and I appreciate the invitation to come and join you later on in the morning to bring a few remarks and to be at this United States-Kazakhstan Convention. I look around the room and see a lot of my friends. I want to thank Frederick Starr for his introduction and noting my hometown of Haleyville. It's a small town of about 5,000 people, so most people don't mention it, so it's good to have my small town where I grew up in Haleyville mentioned this morning at this among this group. But thank you for your work on the panel and for your work on with the Central Asian Caucus Institute. Let me just say I'm honored to be here as the Republican co-chair for the Kazakhstan Caucus in the United States Congress. I've served in that capacity, I think, probably about 6 years now, 5 or 6 years, and have had a chance to travel to Kazakhstan on a couple of different occasions. And it is certainly a country of I think people really have to go there to see the beauty of it. I was just noticing the photos that were up there on the screen before the presentation started this morning, and it shows you a little bit of the beauty. I know most people in this room are familiar with Kazakhstan and realize that, but I think there's so many Americans that don't really realize the beauty of Kazakhstan and really the richness of that region and what all it has to offer. So I'm honored to be a part of the Kazakhstan Caucus, to be the Republican co-chair, and to talk about some of these issues. No doubt that as you meet over the next day or so, that you will learn more than I could ever hope to talk about in just these brief few minutes. But just like to share with you briefly a couple things that I've learned through my travels and work over the years. Kazakhstan and really the Central Asia region, but especially Kazakhstan, continues to grow, and as we realize, plays an integral role, an important role in the global economy. As this happens, it is very encouraging to see an interest in partnering with the United States and other international companies. This welcoming atmosphere that we feel from Kazakhstan allows companies to expand and invest in the region, and really that's good for the U.S. and it's also good for Kazakhstan. It's good for everybody involved. There are many opportunities to deepen and expand economic cooperation between our countries. And in particular, I'm thinking about the field of energy, manufacturing, and infrastructure development. I understand that companies ranging from Microsoft to IBM to Chevron to ExxonMobil are working in Kazakhstan to foster this type of innovation and this type of infrastructure. And let me just stress to you, that's no small thing. That is something that is very important and something from the congressional standpoint that we want to do everything that we can to encourage. I think it's conferences like this that is going on really helps build those bridges between the people of our two countries, and also are important for political, economic, and social collaborations. So your presence here today and taking time to be here at this conference here in Washington, D.C. is no small thing, and I appreciate your willingness to be here. It is great to see the sponsors of this event making such a concerted effort to build a real genuine partnership, because really the key to anything that happens is built on relationships, and that's what happens here in this room and what happens because of conferences like this. We know that the people of Kazakhstan and across Central Asia want to live in a place where not only economic opportunity is afforded to everyone, but also a place where basic human rights and religious freedom are equally respected, and a place where the rule of law is protected by a government that serves all of its citizens. And I just want to stress to you how important that is, the basic human rights and religious freedoms. I can tell you, my colleagues in Congress, how important, the importance that we put on that, and so just let me uplift that to you as something that we think is highly important, and we want to make sure that all countries around the world respect those equally. I've had the opportunity, as I mentioned, to travel to Kazakhstan a couple of times along with my wife, and to work with Kazakh officials over the last few years. And let me say I've been impressed by the positive steps and the concerted effort that Kazakhstan has made to try to deal with human rights issues and rule of law issues, and the progress that has been made. No country can afford to take for granted the progress made toward human rights that are made toward religious freedom and civil liberties. And the work that Kazakhstan has done in trying to promote that does not go unnoticed. It is clear that young people really around the world really hunger for opportunities to improve their lives and and not only for themselves but also improve the lives and the opportunities for their country. They want to be involved in a society that puts the emphasis on education, on business, government, and the political process. And that's something that we can all encourage them in, and something that we can support them in. In Kazakhstan and parts of Central Asia, we know there is a transitioning to representative democracies. And this process takes time. And I know that even in Kazakhstan, a lot of changes has occurred over the last 25 years. And I think it is important that the international community continue to assist Central Asian nations who wish to build a better and a more prosperous future. Historically, the United States has dedicated itself to strengthen public institutions, improve education, and promote economic development in Central Asia. And I think that we must continue this development as a nation, and we must be engaged in helping our friends in the Maghreb tackle these issues as well. As you know from reading the news and seeing in the newspapers this morning, we have a budget deal that has potentially been come to a head on Capitol Hill, and we're now going through the process of the members of the House and Senate really getting into detail of what is in that budget deal. It looks promising at this point, and so everything is abuzz just up the hill on this new bill that has been rolled out as of last night. to really get us more into a stability and trying to get more permanency in the way that we deal with the appropriations process, which I sit on, and other things that happen behind the scenes on Capitol Hill. So I'm leaving here to go for an appropriations update on the budget deal. So I'm going to cut my comments short, but I do want to stress with you that we understand that a lot of these things takes time, and I want you to understand those things as well. No one expects a successful democracy to be up and running and with economic opportunity growing exponentially overnight. And that's something that we understand takes step by step. Just like we've seen with this budget deal, it's been a step-by-step process, and it doesn't overcome overnight. So thank you for, again, the opportunity to join you this morning and to mention the Kazakhstan caucus and mention my relations with Kazakhstan and the important cause that you're here for. I look forward to being engaged with you as you develop economic strength, technology advances, peace, prosperity, and cooperation in Kazakhstan. And we want, for those of you who do have relationships with members of Congress across the country, we do hope that you would let them know of our U.S. Kazakhstan caucus that we have established in the United States House of Representatives. And we're actively wanting members to be engaged with us, to be involved in that, to really see all the good things that are happening in Kazakhstan and all the good things that will come from a U.S.-Kazakhstan relationship. So again, hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. It's an honor to be here. May God bless all of you and bless our two countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
We are now going to hear from the congressman from Silicon Valley. He has other identities, but that's one that we don't treat lightly. Mike Honda has been a member of Congress for 12 years, I believe, and he is the Democratic whip in the House, and he is also, and again, this says something about this conference, he's also a member of the important House Appropriations Committee. I want to just say his background, he was in the Peace Corps, but significantly he taught science for 30 years, and he is by profession an educator, for which I say hats off. Congressman Honda. After Congressman Honda speaks, we will have a brief film and then continue with our program.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for this opportunity. And Mr. Starr, thank you for that introduction. Mr. Ambassador, dignitaries from Kazakhstan, and all the participants here, thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank the Embassy of Kazakhstan and the Turkic-American Alliance for hosting this very historic 2013 convention. And I want to recognize my colleague, Representative Alderholt, who is also serves on the Appropriation Committee also. You know, as Kazakhstan looks to increase their competitiveness in the world, it's a grand gathering that we have today, a historic convention that focused on strengthening the political, social, and economic ties between Kazakhstan and the United States. Kazakhstan has already proven to be a leader in nuclear nonproliferation. As a Japanese American who's married to a woman who was born in Hiroshima and as an A-bomb survivor, we understand at the gut level how important nonproliferation is when we talk about nuclear weapons. And it's a nuclear nonproliferation leadership that Kazakhstan has both on the regional and the global stage. And Kazakhstan's role in this arena is important, and it's important today more than ever. Recently, the World Economic Forum ranked Kazakhstan among the 50 most developed countries in the world. And earlier this year, as the representative of Silicon Valley, had the pleasure of meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Isakeshev, Ambassador Kumarov, and the Deputy Minister of Industry and New Technologies, Mr. Tulishin. And we talked about mutual benefits of investing in Silicon Valley's tech and green energy companies, creating not only American jobs and building new industries, also in Kazakhstan. I'm proud that the entrepreneurial spirit of my valley resides in each one of us, and the spark of innovation, creativity, and the drive to think outside the box is what I think unites all of us. From energy security, technology, regional security, and economic integration, we're looking for new opportunities for long-term initiatives and exploring enormous partnerships avenues between our country and Kazakhstan. The bilateral relationship is a wonderful thing, with the U.S. being the first country to recognize Kazakhstan as an independent country. And happy 22nd anniversary of independence to the government and the people of Kazakhstan. Let me just close with this bit of a history. I think that when I, as a person who's never been to Kazakhstan yet, will visit it, but when I look at the faces of the folks in that region, it varies. And it varies because probably of the historical movement of people through that, for that region. And that says something to me about how people mingle and mix and integrate and work with each other and grow with each other. And I just want to recognize that historically in this country, we're taught about the Silk Road and its place in global history and how exchanges went through the Silk Road. And in those days, it was probably very slow, but sure. And today, that Silk Road runs from Kazakhstan to the United States, not only in a sense of the silk thread, but also through the fiber that just draws our country closer together and collapse time and distance. So one of the things I just want to close with is I want to thank you for allowing us to speak in English. Now, there's a lot more to it than what I just said, because our country needs to do what Kazakhstan has done. In Kazakhstan, there's 3 obligatory languages you have to learn from children all the way up. That's Kazakhstan, Russian, and English. And in this country, there's no obligatory language that you have to learn unless you go to certain universities and you have to have one other foreign language. And I think that this country ought to start to understand, start thinking about learning other languages. Now, Kazakhstan is situated in geographically quite strategically, much like Switzerland is in Europe. And I think that there's reasons for learning Russian, Kazakhstan, and English. But then in the media, both print and in electronics, there's 11 to 15 other languages that are employed. So what does this tell me, and what should it tell us as a country? That they're getting information in different languages so that they can pick and choose and become very critical in their consumption of information, consumption of goods, and consumption of languages where language understanding and the subtleties of language that carries communication becomes critical. And we know that language is a manner by which cultural transmission occurs from one generation to another. So just imagine a country where it's obligatory to learn 3 languages, and then you better be able to handle some other languages, and then put ourselves in that situation. In trade, diplomatic relationships, and just being around with each other. If in trade and business you have to caucus, you can't caucus in front of Kazakhstan in English. You have to leave the room. But if they want to caucus in front of you, they can caucus in Russian, Kazakhstan, or any other language. So just on the level playing field, it's going to behoove our country, for no other reason, to learn other languages, but to be able to communicate, integrate our thoughts, and be able to understand each other. Because if language is the cultural transmission vehicle, then we'll understand other people and ourselves much more better. Was that good English? Much more better? Thank you.
Kazakhstan is a great steppe, the heart of Eurasia, where the Great Silkway crossroads lay for 1,000 years. Today, the dynamic young state is developing. Kazakhstan is the modern connecting bridge between East and West. Kazakhstan is a country where the unique landscapes tie together a harmonious mosaic. The greatness of mountain peaks and wideness of steppes, the stillness of lakes and roaring sea waves. Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country of the world, with population of more than 17 million people. The richest natural resources hide in the interiors of the republic. The young country, with a short historical period of 2 decades, is strong and now is aimed at the future. The modern Kazakhstan is the vivid embodiment of the solidarity of nation and goals established by the strategy Kazakhstan 2030. Within the latest 15 years, the GDP per capita increased 9-fold. The poverty has declined 10 times, while the unemployment level reduced more than 2 times. Today, Kazakhstan is well placed among top 50 in the Global Competitiveness Index, is ranked 49th in the Doing Business rating. 140 ethnic groups and 17 confessions are peacefully building up the future of Kazakhstan. In December 2012, the President Nursultan Nazarbayev has announced the new development course for the country up to the year 2050.
20 лет – это для истории, для Вселенной – это секунда, это мгновение. Но за это короткое время Казахстан сумел пройти путь, равный столетиям.
The major goal is to enter the club of 30 most developed countries of the world with strong innovative economy yielding high quality of life for the citizens. It is also about achieving the best education and health systems and sustaining peace and composure. But it is also about freedom and equality of citizens, fairness of the governance and rule of law. Kazakhstan is ready for a new jump into the prosperous future.
Our next presentation will be by Dr. Carrie-Ann Jones, whose title I'm going to read slowly. It's Assistant Secretary of State, Bureau of Oceans, International Environment, and Scientific Affairs. So it's a huge portfolio, an exceedingly important one. Dr. Jones has served in numerous posts within the federal government, and including at the NSF. She is a PhD in molecular biophysics and biochemistry from Yale, where she did what must have been at that time rather pioneering research on using nuclear magnetic resonance. It's really an honor to have you here today.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and it is an honor to be here today for this very important convention. Mr. Ambassador, I thank you for the invitation to be here, and it was a very good thing to hear from 2 congressmen about how they view Kazakhstan and how dynamically our Congress is engaged with Kazakhstan as it grows forward. Today, what I'm going to talk about is our science and technology relationship. And I want to sort of look at it from 2 perspectives. The first is why is science and technology important to our bilateral relationship? And the second is, if it is so important, what are we doing about that? So how are we trying to strengthen it? And I think just that video that we saw, if you were to look at it and look at how many places there you saw highly technical industries, students in research in universities, and you just sort of looked at where was science in that video, it was every place, including probably in the production of the video. And I think that's sort of what we see about science and technology today. It's really everywhere across both of our countries. And it's not just in the innovation that we look to science and technology, but it's also in bringing communities together, bringing our scientific communities together and our businesses together, and looking for ways to build partnerships and solve problems. And of course, it's really good to bring our communities together because they share a lot of common values, the values that really define the scientific community, which cut across politics and language and culture and borders. And these sorts of values and disciplines include such things as supporting the highest quality research, working to ensure that data is open and available to everyone, and certainly making sure that research results are reproducible. So we know that science is important for both of our countries, and both of our countries are committed to investing in science and strengthening our relationship because we feel we have a role to play in solving common challenges and shared problems. Some of the things that we need to address, and I'm sure you're all familiar with them, address issues regarding health, addressing environmental challenges, and just generally improving the quality of life for our citizens. As President Obama has stated, never has science been more essential to our economic well-being. And both of our nations have embraced that and looked to science as an important element in developing our economic prospects for the future. So with that background, what are we doing? Well, I'm very happy to be here today and very heartened to be able to talk about how much is going on in our science relationship at this point. We have had a tremendous amount of activity. From just an idea a few years ago, the Kazakh Center for Energy Research at Nazarbayev University now has collaborations with several of our labs at the U.S. Department of Energy. Nazarbayev has also developed partnerships with top U.S. universities, including Duke, Carnegie Mellon, the University of Pennsylvania, the University of Pittsburgh, and the University of Wisconsin. Now, what this really shows is that our institutions are building a network of connections. They're learning to work together, and they are trying to make advances together. And doing such work together, our scientists have been able to make progress. They have made advances such as a Kazakh-US collaboration between the Department of Agriculture and the Kazakh scientists who worked on developing an experimental hepatitis C vaccine. Also, Kazakh scientists have been working with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency researchers working on a method to purify mercury-contaminated water. I'm very happy to be able to say I've been to Kazakhstan twice. I've been to Kazakhstan in the winter and in the spring, and they are both beautiful times. For the winter, you do need a different wardrobe, though, for sure. I was there in June when I led the delegation to Astana to participate in our inaugural meeting under the 2010 U.S.-Kazakhstan Science and Technology Agreement. At that meeting, we identified shared priorities, and we established 3 working groups in the areas of biomedical research. The second was in green chemistry, and the third was in natural resources and mineral management. Each of these working groups have now developed an action plan to clearly define next steps because both of our teams were committed to actions and not just having meetings, which sometimes we just have meetings and we don't have enough action, but we do have action plans that we plan to move out on. That meeting went very well. The Green Chemistry Working Group was the first of its kind, and it supports President Nazarbayev's decree to create a green economy by 2050. Under this working group, we're hoping that U.S. companies will be able to share some of their experiences on how to use green chemistry to reduce hazardous waste and decrease water and energy uses, resulting in both a better protection of the environment as well as better economic advances. We also, the Group for Natural Resources and Mineral Management, in that group, the U.S. Geological Survey is working in collaboration with KAZGeology to discuss how to share data for managing resources and to explore cost-effective ways to reduce greenhouse gases as part of the national climate change strategies for both of our countries. And as a highlight of the meeting, at the conclusion of it, a memorandum of understanding was signed on low-emissions development strategies, allowing our two countries to cooperate on sustainable, smart growth. This is a very important activity for both of our countries, and our collaboration really shows both countries' commitments to making advances in this area. We also tried to look for some other new ideas during the meeting as well. And one of the ones that emerged was the fact that the National Institutes of Health had been working with Kazakh scientists for many years on biodiversity and natural products. Kazakhstan has several unique plant species with potential as anti-cancer drug candidates. And as an outcome of this joint meeting, the NIH and Kazakh scientists are going to work together to look at how do you protect the areas where such potentially important plants grow and develop what's called a biorepository. This would put Kazakhstan really in the forefront regarding the potential for some drug discovery, balancing that with how do you preserve an ecosystem where such plants grow and develop. We certainly want to continue the momentum that we had in this meeting. And in order to do that, the U.S. has established a funding opportunity to enable a small number of Kazakhstani scientists to travel to the U.S. and to work on research topics that were identified during the working group meetings. And in addition to just the meeting, I was able to visit some institutions during my visit in June. And one of them I visited was the Alataul Technopark. And this is a very important center, and it really is a demonstration of Kazakhstan's determination to foster innovation by establishing a special economic zone where the different players are brought together in close proximity and really to facilitate the kind of growth of innovation and partnership. It was great to be able to visit that park. And also, it was great to be able to note that the park has been able to attract some major American companies, such as Microsoft and Cisco and HP. We certainly want to continue to partner with Kazakhstan and to encourage efforts to create an environment conducive to the development of technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And there are some other programs where we hope to connect Kazakhstan innovators, such programs as the State Department's Global Innovation Through Science and Technology Initiative, where we hope we can have more partnerships developing. So let me conclude here, and I hope what you can see from these examples that I mentioned from this recent meeting and some of the other visits I was able to make during that meeting, that we are very much expanding and deepening our partnership. The U.S. really believes strongly in scientific collaboration, and that it's a very important way to bring scientific communities together. It's a way to get to know each other, it's a way to solve problems, and it's a way to be able to link our innovative systems. And both of our countries are committed to these endeavors. So I'm very proud of what we have achieved, and I'm optimistic of what we can do in the future. It's been a pleasure to address you today, and I am very happy that science and technology and innovation have been on the agenda for this important convention, because it really shows how central it is to our relationship and how important it is for our future. I also want to extend to you my best wishes for Kazakhstan's Independence Day. I think it's celebrated on Monday, so congratulations. I hope it's a wonderful celebration. Thank you very much for your attention.
As a trustee of Nazarbayev University, I want to assure you that this is an institution that will open many, many doors for collaboration not only in the natural sciences, but also in the social sciences and medicine and other fields. And so, frankly, if I were a young faculty member at this point, I'd take a couple of years off and go over there and teach or do research. Now, we're going to turn to the Astana Economic Forum, about which our next two speakers will have much to say. We'll begin with Mr. Serlik Nugurbekov, who is a member of the Senate of Kazakhstan. He is co-chairman of the Eurasian Economic Club for Scholars and an economist. He is editor, and many of you have seen this publication, of the Eurasian Economic Review and of the Economics, Finance, and Research magazine. Sir, please turn on your translation machines if you need them.
Большое спасибо. Вот предыдущие спикеры отмечали успехи Казахстана в ядерном разоружении, закрытии. Казахстан — это первая страна, которая закрыла ядерный полигон благодаря решению президента нашей страны, господина Назарбаева. Я также хотел рассказать о других глобальных инициативах Казахстана, которые Казахстан продвигает на мировой арене. Это такие инициативы, как съезд мировых религий. В течение 10 лет уже Казахстан 4-й раз собирает лидеров мировых религий, конфессий. И представители, лидеры разных религий обсуждают, как они дальше будут сотрудничать между собой. Это большая инициатива Казахстана. Также в рамках большого проекта G-Global, который мы продвигаем в интернет-пространстве, очень такой глобальная инициатива Казахстана — это совещание по мерам доверия в Азии, и где впервые удалось, когда была очень непростая ситуация между двумя государствами, как Индия и Пакистан, и именно в Алмате удалось сесть за стол переговоров и где-то достичь определенных договоренностей. Вы знаете, что в 2011 году прошел глобальный саммит Рио+20, который обсуждает, как наша планета планирует в ближайшие 10 лет бороться за более здоровую экологию. И в итоговый документ Рио+20 вошла именно казахстанская инициатива «Зеленый мост», глобальная энергоэкологическая стратегия. Также вы, наверное, слышали, недавно Казахстан выиграл конкурс «Экспо» в 2017 году. Глобальная международная выставка пройдет в Казахстане. Это за такой небольшой период, 20 лет, это инициативы Казахстана, которые касаются всей планеты. Также эти последние наши инициативы — это Астанинский экономический форум, который проводится с 2008 года. Решение о проведении Астанинского экономического форума было принято как раз в период начала глобального кризиса, мирового финансово-экономического кризиса. И если мы будем классифицировать мировую финансово-экономическую систему как живой организм, во время кризиса мировая финансово-экономическая система, она болеет. И в таких условиях единственные врачи — это ученые, экономисты. Поэтому в Астане был создан Евразийский экономический клуб ученых, который на сегодня объединяет ученых, экономистов, практиков более 120 государств. И мы в мае месяце провели 6-й Астанинский экономический форум. Астанинский экономический форум, начиная с 2009 года, вырабатывает рекомендации для группы G20. В прошлом году мы на Генеральной Ассамблее ООН вручили данные рекомендации господину Пан Ги Муну, генеральному секретарю ООН, президенту Генассамблеи, а также шерпе G20 мексиканское председательствование. В этом году очень такое большое аутрич мероприятие прошло в рамках Астанинского экономического форума. И, как вы знаете, вот в рамках Организации Объединенных Наций прошли две большие конференции. Это конференция по финансированию развития и конференция по борьбе с финансовым и экономическим кризисом, которые прошли в Нью-Йорке. К сожалению, вот две ООНовские такие большие конференции не пришли к конкретному результату. И так как страны ООН не могли найти компромисса, и итогового решения не было. Поэтому Казахстан выступил с инициативой проведения Всемирной антикризисной конференции. Она у нас в этом году прошла во время работы Астанинского экономического форума. Проведение данной Всемирной антикризисной конференции было поддержано Генеральной Ассамблеей ООН. Все 193 государств, членов Организации Объединенных Наций, поддержала инициативу Казахстана по проведению антикризисной конференции. По итогам антикризисной конференции была принята Астанинская декларация и основные направления мирового антикризисного плана. Сейчас на пространстве интернет, на коммуникативной площадке G-Global, я вас всех приглашаю принять участие, проходит в онлайн режиме. С 1 июля идет обсуждение программ Астанинского экономического форума и Всемирной антикризисной конференции, которые пройдут 21-23 мая 2014 года. Уже на сегодняшний день на коммуникативной площадке G-Global уже размещено более 7 тысяч докладов, более 7 тысяч рекомендаций. И интернет-сообщество, буквально можно сказать, всем миром, мы сейчас наполняем мировой антикризисный план конкретным содержанием, научным содержанием. Мы планируем данную работу завершить где-то к 1 апреля и передать проект мирового антикризисного плана, который сформирован в интернете на коммуникативной площадке G-Global, министрам финансов, экономик, руководителям национальных банков, ученым, экспертам. На Астанинский экономический форум очень активное участие принимают и граждане Соединенных Штатов Америки. В прошлом году в работе форума принимало участие 10 лауреатов Нобелевской премии, такие известные ученые-экономисты, как Роберт Мандел, Эдмунд Фелпс, очень сильно господин Маскин, профессор Гарвардского университета. И вот мы сейчас проводим большую подготовку по проведению Всемирной антикризисной конференции. Если в этом году в работе Всемирной антикризисной конференции приняли участие представители 104 государств, то мы надеемся, что на следующий год в работе Всемирной антикризисной конференции примет большее количество участников. Мы планируем вообще принять сам мировой антикризисный план на уровне министров финансов, экономики и руководителей Национального банка в следующем году. Если мы придем к компромиссу и сумеем такой антикризисный план выработать всем мировым сообществом, то в 2015-2016 году мы планируем его представить на уровень глав государств и правительств. На самом деле Астана, она дает платформу, она дает площадку, а данный мировой антикризисный план вырабатывают политики, ученые, эксперты, теоретики и практики, вырабатывают данный план. Также в рамках Астанинского экономического форума идут не только научные дискуссии, проходят выставки инвестиционных ресурсов, инновационных ресурсов. Мы вас приглашаем, предпринимателей, представителей бизнес-структур, вкладывать инвестиции в Казахстан. Мы особо благодарны Соединенным Штатам Америки. За время независимости Казахстан привлек около 200 миллиардов долларов. И Соединенные Штаты Америки внесли в Казахстан, это страна, которая больше всех внесла инвестиции в Казахстан. И в данных сейчас в Казахстане очень сильно идет по программе диверсификации экономики. Строится очень много новых предприятий на сумму около 600 миллиардов долларов. Мы сейчас приступаем ко второй пятилетке программы форсированного индустриально-инновационного развития. Вы знаете, что Казахстан сейчас функционирует в режиме единое экономическое пространство. Между Казахстаном, Россией и Белоруссией сейчас нету таможенных границ, свободное передвижение товаров, трудовых ресурсов, денег. И это 170 миллионов населения, очень большая территория. Но у Казахстана преимущество перед Российской Федерацией и Белоруссией в том, что налоговая нагрузка в Казахстане, она меньше. Если в целом суммировать налоговую нагрузку в Казахстане, она меньше, чем в Российской Федерации и Белоруссии. Второе преимущество Казахстана, как до этого отмечали спикеры, есть специальный рейтинг Всемирного банка, называется Doing Business. Согласно этому рейтингу оцениваются усилия государств по уменьшению административных барьеров. И Казахстан вошел в число 50 самых таких конкурентоспособных, продвинутых государств по данному рейтингу. Для сравнения, например, Российская Федерация находится, согласно этому рейтингу, на 120 месте, то есть это почти получается в 2 раза больше там административных барьеров. Поэтому мы недавно буквально на предыдущей сессии выступали представители компании General Electric, которая очень активно сейчас работает в Казахстане именно по внедрению новых технологий. Поэтому я еще раз хочу вас пригласить на Астанинский экономический форум, чтобы вы приняли участие. Это 21 мая-23 мая 2014 года. А пока я приглашаю вас на коммуникативную площадку G-Global, чтобы мы в рамках G-Global на коммуникативной площадке, на пространстве интернет вместе думали о том, каким образом необходимо нам, всем нашим сообществам, всем глобальным сообществам выходить из той ситуации, на которой находится сегодня мир. Буквально недавно, как я говорил выше, мир потряс большой кризис. Сейчас ситуация в мировой финансово-экономической системе на самом деле не такая простая. И разрешите мне от имени Евразийского экономического клуба ученых, от имени сообщества ученых и практиков пригласить вас на наш форум. Также приглашаю вас вкладывать инвестиции, инновации в Республику Казахстан. Спасибо большое.
We're going to hear further on the Astana Economic Forum from Mr. Alan Spence, who is a specialist in media strategies, a well-known and effective choreographer of major publications, meetings, and conferences. He is CEO of Newsdesk Media in London, President of the Atlantic Council of the UK and Commonwealth, and a Director of the Atlantic Council of the United States. His focus for half a decade at least has been on Central Asia and the Caucasus.
Thank you, and good morning, distinguished guests, Ambassador, distinguished speakers, participants. As you can see, I'm also grateful to address you in English, English of a slightly different nature. I'll say no more, but I come from England, and one of the early memories that I have of my childhood in England are 3 gigantic, like golf balls on the moors behind my home. And I remember the day that I asked my father what they were for. And he didn't tell me actually the first time, he didn't tell me the second time. And then I kept on going, and he said, well, I'll tell you what they are. You're old enough to know now. That's the early warning system. I said, what early warning system? I said, well, he said, well, if Soviet missiles are fired at this country and at our friends, then these gigantic golf balls on the moor top behind us will give us 4 minutes warning. I don't know what I was supposed to do in the 4 minutes, but maybe I could have got inside the house, you know. Looking back to my childhood, yeah, there was like everybody's childhoods at that time, the all-pervasive threat of nuclear warfare. And it didn't disappear for a long time after my childhood. But it's quite amazing to think, as I've strengthened my ties with Kazakhstan over the last 10 years, that a country that didn't exist as a country till 22 years ago has played such a wonderful, magnificent role in non-proliferation, has actually removed everything that it had, signed the non-proliferation treaty, and now is such an active participant, a much respected participant in all of these attempts. We hear the next one coming up, the big conference which is taking place in March, and to make the world a safer place. Now, why do I start there? Okay, memories of my childhood, contrast that with where I am now in terms of my close relationship with Kazakhstan, but it's also part of a theme that I just want to develop for a couple of minutes with you, which the Astana Economic Forum does actually fit into. And that's this, that Kazakhstan is a wonderful friend of the West, of my country, Britain, of the United States, of the European Union, of the NATO alliance, African countries. It has friends around the world. But there are some, and sometimes I have to scratch my head a little bit as to why they say it so effusively and so apparently convincingly, that do not give Kazakhstan the credit for what Kazakhstan has done in such a very short time. And I guess that's where I professionally come into things, because there is, to my mind, a big gap between the perception, in many cases, particularly in the media. I speak, for instance, about the media in the United Kingdom. We had a recent official visit by my Prime Minister David Cameron to Kazakhstan. When he came back, all sorts of things had been agreed, but the press were not keen. They didn't like it. And quite often you get that reaction around the world. The reason for it is because the perception of Kazakhstan is out of keeping with the reality of what is going on in Kazakhstan. And I see it as the job of a number of people, and I would like to include myself in that, my company in that, to say what is the truth, to say what is not the truth, and then to let people decide. But that margin, that big margin between what is perception in so many cases and what is the truth, has to be addressed. Because Kazakhstan is a wonderful ally. Who would have thought that you would have had operations like Steppe Eagle taking place in a former Soviet country with NATO troops involved? Who would have thought that Kazakhstan would have been such a wonderful supporter in the war against so crucial in the time ahead? Now, I'm not here to do all of these things, say all of these, go through all the arguments which have been put one way or another this morning. But what I am here to say is that that misconception about what Kazakhstan is, what it is trying to do, and where it is going, and what that means for Eurasia, for Kazakhstan, and actually for the world, without exaggerating, because it does have global consequences. It does have a role which we saw so vitally in this last year with the P5+1 talks. How often are they discussed in the press? When all the news came out about Geneva, I went through the papers, didn't really see anything much about where they'd started, where the initial contacts took place and why, and who was able to hold the ring. Didn't see much of that. So these things do have to be addressed. And that is, what is necessary is communication and engagement. Kazakhstan is doing many, many very good things on engagement. And the Astana Economic Forum is one of those mechanisms by which it engages. What is discussed there is very important. It's talking about everything that's been mentioned here today. It discusses all the major issues which are discussed at the G8 and the G20. It has the information platform which we've just heard about. But fundamentally, what it is about is engagement. That's important for Kazakhstan, but it's important for all the people who want to engage with Kazakhstan. And it's important for peace and prosperity, both in the region and globally. This coming year in Astana, there's going to be a number of things happening. It is the 70th anniversary of the International Monetary Fund. The Bretton Woods agreements of 69 years ago are going to be discussed and celebrated there. It is the 50th anniversary of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which plays such a core role in foreign direct investment, which we've been hearing a lot about today. There is the anti-crisis plan, which has been further refined. And then there's a whole huge swathe of other issues that you'll see on the agendas of all sorts of international meetings around. So it is crucial. The core of it is communication. I want to leave you just with a thought. I was in Astana 2 weeks ago, and one of the things that impresses me so much, at Nazarbayev University, you have youngsters there thirsting for knowledge, youngsters there who want to be part and parcel of the new world to which they feel they quite naturally have a right. And with those people, and they want to participate in the world at large. Young kids who want to become entrepreneurs, they're there too. They're so anxious for knowledge, for opportunity. Kids who want to be young leaders in whatever sorts of organizations, whether it's bigger industry, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the media. I went to the media building, and the level of enthusiasm there is palpable. Ideas, people driving themselves forward, average age, mid-20s, you know, and they all wear the same sort of jeans as media people do in the West as well, you know, with holes in them, slashed. More expensive ones because they're designer slashes. That's a different Kazakhstan to the one I think that so many people know. And I've had a long relationship with Kazakhstan. We work closely with people over there, and we're working closely on the Astana Economic Forum with people. I would urge you, any of you, to go along, participate, be involved, make your criticisms, make your points. If you want to talk about elephants in the room, go and talk about them. You'll be welcome. And those are my thoughts. I'm just passing those on to you, and I hope you find that helpful. Thank you.
Looking ahead to 2017, an even bigger fiesta is going to be held in Kazakhstan, Expo 2017. Our next two presenters are going to tell us about that. We're going to begin with Pavel Chermeris, who served as the strategy manager for the Asian Games when they were held in Kazakhstan. He's from Almaty, studied in Utrecht, and he is currently senior representative of the Astana Expo 2017.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to meet you all here, and I would first like to thank Mr. Umar for this opportunity to present on this big event that Kazakhstan would host in the following years. But it's not only the presentation that I would like to make today, but it's also seeking for our partners that will help us to make this event really distinct and really international. By the way, can I have my presentation? Yeah, I think it looks better than my face. Go ahead. You can. So, what is Expo 2017 about? Yep. So, one year back, the Bureau of International Exhibitions has selected Kazakhstan to be the hoster of Expo 2017 to be conducted in Astana. And during this event, we'll discuss and elaborate the problems and opportunities of future energy. And this whole event will take place on the 25-hectare site, but the whole area dedicated to this event will be even 7 times larger. The exhibition will take place during 3 months, and it will start in June 2017 and will be finished in September 2017. And not yet, but still. And understanding the importance and relevance of this topic, the future energy, we believe that in 2017 the event will be one of the most visited and one of the most interested for the global community. And if you go ahead, yeah. And the event is recognized at all levels in Kazakhstan, but it was, as it was mentioned by our president, it should not be only at Kazakhstan level the impact of Expo, but it should expand to the international level and provide a powerful stimulus to global energy transformation. You can, yep. So how we'll explain this topic? We'll have three sub-themes: reduction of CO2 emissions, living energy efficiency, and energy for all. Under each theme, we'll have certain solutions how we can work on the future energy. And for example, in reduction of CO2 emissions, we'll elaborate on how we can use the CO2 efficient energy sources, or what will be the alternatives for these sources. On living energy efficiency, we'll explain how we can use our energy efficiently, or how we can store it. Energy for all will be the social part for this issue, and we'll explain how we should share the energy with all the countries, and everyone should have access to the energy. Yeah, you can go ahead. So our major goals now is to promote Expo both in Kazakhstan and abroad. We need to attract more than 5 million visits to Expo, and our goal, which is quite ambitious now, is to have more than 15% international visits. We want Expo to be a unique experience for all visitors, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're seeking for collaboration. We want to raise the awareness about Expo theme and put Kazakhstan as the tourism destination on the global map. It is, again, you see this nice video. You saw a lot of, I think, information about how interesting Kazakhstan is, and what we seek is promotion. These nice sceneries in the global area. So in Kazakhstan, you can find not only these nice cities, but these perfect wild nature views, which you cannot get anywhere. Well, not so often now. So now I will be more specific on what we've done up to this point and what our short-term strategic goals. So up till this moment, we've already finalized the registration dossier, which is the strategic plan of the exhibition, and we've conducted the architecture design of Expo. So we already decided how the Expo will look like exactly. We're now preparing the preliminary project documentation, the feasibility study, and selecting contractors for construction works. We believe that up to spring 2014, these 3 major issues will be finalized, and up from that moment we will start construction works. And this is very, very important, I think, because first of all, this is a great opportunity for international investors who potentially would like to cooperate with Expo to become our partners. And it's not only investment in real estate or commercial commercial property, but it's also about joining us as business partners for organizing the event. And it's like brand management, it's merchandising, it's concession stores, food concessions, and similar issues. Kazakhstan also putting efforts to make it's interesting for international investors, and we have now created Expo Law, which provides for certain benefits for international investors, which is tax benefits, custom benefits, and allowance for use of foreign workforce. Here I would like to draw your attention to the competition that we had before, and it started in February 2013, and the competition was for the best architecture design project. And back in September, the results were announced, and our partners now, Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill, officially the architecture designers of the Expo site. And this is our first big steps in international partnership and cooperation. Yeah, so which results we're aiming at after we finalize the Expo? So we have 3 levels. This is global impact, national impact, and local impact. And in the global sense, we want to showcase and accelerate global energy innovation. For Kazakhstan, we want to make this as transition towards green economy and alternative energy utilization. And locally, we want to make this Expo site beneficial for the whole community of Astana. So as a post-use, we don't want to make this Expo as a desert. It was a bad experience of some countries after hosting Expo. The sites were really abandoned and there was no use of them. So we are working heavily now to attract foreign companies and partners and make this small land plot a smart city and green energy model, which will then expand to all cities in Kazakhstan. And as a post-Expo complex, we'll have Science and Technology Park, Culture and Art Center, residential and hotels, and other public areas. This is like a very brief overview. If you are interested in cooperation, we're still here in Astana or in Washington. I'm still in Astana, in Washington for 2-3 days. So we're flexible. We can have meetings with you, and we'll be pleased also to meet you or provide more information if you want to contact us. And for sure, we'd like to welcome you in Astana in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we were 8 or 9 minutes late returning from the break, with your indulgence, we'll go a few minutes over. Mr. Chimeras didn't say this, but had this design project, huge design project, been undertaken 20 years ago, one assumes that the design work would have gone to some big government architectural agency, or maybe to someone who paid an awful lot of money under the table. In this case, however, and increasingly in Kazakhstan, the major designs are being selected through competition, and rigorous ones and international ones. And so we're going to hear now from Gordon Gill and Brian Jack, who are with the firm of Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill from Chicago, which won this competition. And I don't know how you're going to do this, sing a duet, but the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for Ambassador and the Embassy for inviting us today. This is a great honor. My name is Gordon Gill. I'm a design partner, Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill Architecture from Chicago. I'm here today because my management partner, Robert Forrest, is actually in Astana today, concluding the contract for this project. So it's a pivotal day for us on many, many fronts. I think, do I just ask for next? Okay, let's start. This was a competition, as Pavel described, over the summer. Those are the 3 suspects. Adrian Smith in the middle, Robert Forrest on the right, myself. We started our firm about 7 years ago. Next, please. To focus on really energy efficiency in large-scale buildings and large-scale projects. We have been very fortunate in those 7 years We have 18 buildings under construction now around the world, many buildings in China, many buildings in the Middle East, Canada, Korea, the United States. We've been invited to India, Latin America, and now we have the distinguished honor of providing the design services for the Expo 2017, which is by far one of the most critical projects in our office and something that I personally look forward to over the next 3 years. Next, please. I just thought I'd show you some of the kind of projects we work on. We are doing a master plan for 100,000 people in Chengdu, China. We will be there next week to deliver this sustainable community with our client. Next, please. We are about to open on the 17th of this month in Seoul, Korea, our headquarters for the Federation Korean of Industries, a photovoltaic exterior wall that delivers power to the building. Next, please. In Wuhan, China, over 600-meter mixed-use tower that's under construction. And next, please. And finally, under construction in Jeddah, the next world's tallest tower, Kingdom Tower. These projects are just some of many which we have in our office. They all come in various shapes, sizes, and different clients, but what we do is we tackle them in every single way we can, in every aspect we can. All the materials, all the systems, looking at lowering the use and the embedded carbon in the projects and delivering the most sustainable project we can. Next, please. So in 10 minutes or so, I'll try and deliver to you our concept for the expo. Next. Make that 7 minutes or so. We have had the pleasure of visiting this year 3 times to Astana and Almaty. And toward the yellow square that you see kind of in the center of that master plan is the site. Next, please. It's a 1.4 kilometer by 1.4 kilometer site, just about between the airport and downtown. A fantastic site. We have established over 20 sustainable goals for this project. Those that you see on the screen are kind of the core principles of the project that we are pursuing with the team. We think that this will be by far one of the most sustainable community developments in the world. That is our goal. We are not looking to experiment with the technology. We are looking to prove it and bear the burden of proof through existing technology and unique design processes that yield outstanding performances. We've done this before. We have had the pleasure of designing some of the world's most sustainable super tall buildings, some of the most sustainable large-scale projects in the Middle East. And now this, as a community, we find to be deeply important to us and deeply important to serve as an example to not just the United States and obviously Kazakhstan, but to the world. Next, please. The site that you see in the bottom right hand with the little red dashed line around it is the 174-hectare site. In the center of that, you see a circle. That's the 25-hectare area expo-specific site. We are connecting through the Grand Park along that orange dashed line to the Baitarek Tower and connecting what we think is the relationship between government and policy at the core and heart of the city to education and research and development as at Nazarbayev University, which is in the bottom left-hand corner, or bottom right-hand corner of the slide, where the yellow bridge connects. There's a principle that the president has developed and discussed called the Green Bridge concept, which is really Kazakhstan's idea of reaching out beyond its boundaries to introduce and to invite different countries and different people to come in. And that Green Bridge concept is part and parcel of this message that we want to deliver in this project. In fact, the literal Green Bridge for us is the park that connects the Baitarek Tower to the Expo Center. Next, please. So we have multiple program aspects to the site. The beauty of this project, which was kind of envisioned with the client and during the competition, was not just the idea that we were presenting an expo. As Pavel said, it's really the legacy of this project, the legacy of the community that remains as a thriving example where we can collect data, do adaptive reuse in the projects, create research and development platforms, create an intelligent collection of study for sustainable buildings and sustainable technologies with the university and with the city, and use that data to educate others on the performance criteria of the built environment. Next, please. That is an image of the project in the competition. At the center is the Kazakhstan pavilion. The kind of low-rise elements around the circle are the international pavilions. There is retail associated with it. There's transit associated with it. New technologies in terms of photovoltaics and geothermal. All the buildings that we do propose to harvest their environment, protect the users, create a level of comfort and safety beyond the standards that are currently out there for international buildings. But in doing so, create a platform for highly intelligent buildings that we think move the building technology towards the future. In doing so, we work closely with the national company and the local architects and developers to exchange knowledge and to educate each other on how we can advance technology and advance the standards of building in the communities, not just theirs, but also ours. Next, please. The analysis and the studies are quite intense. We do a lot of geeky stuff in our office, like computational fluid dynamics and thermal analysis and radiosity diagrams, to understand what it is exactly that we're doing when we come to your country and work in your cities. Next, please. So these are just some of the things that we look at. We work with RWDI in Canada to look at the wind tunnel tests. We model those tests. We understand how the buildings perform. We know winter is critical. We know that life continues all year long. And so we design those environments for you to be as comfortable as possible and as safe as possible in the harshest conditions. Next, please. So those are just some of the wind diagrams that you see here that we have already begun to integrate into the building's designs. And we presented about a week ago when we were in Astana, well, 2 weeks ago when we were in Astana for our kickoff. Next, please. Keep going. Next. The orientation of the site as we begin to develop, everything is optimizing its site as much as possible. What we like about this project more than other projects that we've worked on in some of the past is that it's fully integrated into the city. It is part and parcel of a vision and a master plan for all of Astana and serves as an integral contributor to the community. It's not an isolated experiment. It's not a building out there and somewhere on its own. It's actually a fantastic parcel nestled in within the heart of the city. And we like that opportunity as we integrate and connect to the existing fabric, and it serves as a kind of example for the growth and pattern of movement and as the master plan continues to move in the future. Next, please. Some of the connection systems that we're already looking for, the transit Nazarbayev University on the left, the existing grid system as it comes into the project, the park on the green axis as it goes up, the top of the picture to the Bayrak Tower. Keep going. Next, please. The illustrative plan of all the different programs that are in the project, hotels, schools, dentist offices, the most humble of programs that go together to make the community. And what we like about these projects is we think they serve as platforms for the intersection of almost every discipline that exists to make a city real. The economics of the city, the policies of the city, the infrastructure of the city, the intelligence of the city, safety, everything that everyone in this room experiences on an everyday basis in the life of the city has to come to play at some level in the design of these projects. Next, please. We have two aspects to this project. One is obviously the expo itself, that, as Pavel explained, run from June to September, and then the other one is the legacy. So the plans look at both conditions and kind of mitigate those as I see Fred's looking at the clock here. Keep going. Next, please, and I'll wrap this up. Illustrative plans. Just keep flipping, and I'll talk over the plans. Some of the program areas, it's about at least 1 million square meters of project. A huge challenge in delivering this, but again, that is part of the idea. I was on the phone this morning to a contractor talking about setting up projects in Astana for actually building prefabricated sustainable homes, and some of the images that we have highlighted. And I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
That's gorgeous. We're going to conclude our session with a assessment of Kazakhstan's macroeconomic prospects. A modest assignment, and it goes to Daniel Heller of the Swiss National Bank. I note that he completed his PhD at Bern in economics and immediately went to work for the Swiss National Bank. He's now head of their work in the international monetary cooperation field. Sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ambassador Umarov, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. After very nice pictures before, all I have to offer is some numbers. I try to be light on numbers, but it's very hard to talk about macroeconomics without some figures. I would first start with an overview of the current or very recent developments in Kazakhstan and then conclude with an outlook over the future. Let me start with the most recent or current developments. As you have seen before today, Kazakhstan has the highest per capita income in the Caucasus and Central Asia. Last year, per capita GDP was $12,000 US. Azerbaijan follows with $7,500 per capita, and Turkmenistan with $6,300. While the world economy remains unsettled following the global financial crisis, growth in Kazakhstan has been remarkably robust. In 2012, growth was at 5.1%. For this year, official forecasts expect a growth rate of 6%. Growth is remarkable, but we should also look at income distribution, and I want to pick up on something that we saw in the movie before. If we look back at 2001, 47% of the population lived below the poverty line. And if we look at the same number in 2012, the number reduced to 3.8%. So that's even more than a tenfold that was mentioned in the, in the movie. So what drives growth in Kazakhstan? It's mostly services and oil production. For instance, last year oil production grew at 3%. Other sectors of the economy, such as manufacturing and construction and agriculture, grew very sluggishly, but they are returning to pre-crisis levels. Kazakhstan has a trade surplus, mostly due to the oil exports. This surplus came down a little bit because oil prices came down. At the same time, Kazakhstan has a current account deficit. This includes the financial flows. The current account deficit became smaller, mostly because international companies repatriated less money out of Kazakhstan because they made less money due to lower revenues. So let me now turn to monetary policy and issues related to the National Bank of Kazakhstan. Let me remind you that just last month, the National Bank of Kazakhstan celebrated its 20th anniversary, and I think the National Bank of Kazakhstan can be commended on many things that it has achieved over the past 20 years. I would just like to point out two. One is the banknotes. If you know the banknotes, they are not only beautiful, but they are also among the most sophisticated in the world. And you need a very ambitious central bank to have secure and beautiful central banks. The second point, I think that is very important, that the National Bank managed successfully to bring down inflation rates. Inflation used to be quite high a decade ago or longer ago. Now inflation rate is around slowly below 6%. The outlook is very stable, and it's below the target that the central bank sets for itself. Let's look at the exchange rate. The National Bank of Kazakhstan is now slowly moving to a more flexible exchange rate. If we look at the first half of 2012, the exchange rate tenge to US dollars was kept fairly stable at 150 tenge per dollar. Then earlier this year, the central bank let depreciate the tenge by 2 to 3%. And just in September, it announced that it would move to a target of not just the dollar, but of a basket of currencies. So in the future, the central bank will keep an eye on a basket currency consisting mostly of dollars, but also the euro and the Russian ruble. Another important element in terms of monetary aspects are external reserves. That's non-domestic currency that a country and a central bank holds. Here, obviously, the oil fund plays an important role. We now have 67 billion US dollars accumulated in the oil fund. Then if we add the reserves of the central bank, we come to a number of 91 billion US dollars, which is equivalent to 43% of GDP. And if we look a little bit across the borders, if a country has 43% of GDP in foreign reserves, that's typically a very comfortable level. It's also a high level in an international comparison. Let's have a quick look at the banking sector. Growth has returned to the banking sector after several years of crisis, but the outlook is somewhat uncertain due to the high level of problems related to bad loans and also low profitability. But growth in credit has been quite strong, around 15% from year to year. The liquidity position of the banks looks strong. A typical figure that we look at is the loan to deposit ratio. This ratio is at 108% in Kazakhstan. That's also quite high. So there are a lot of deposits that support the loan book. Capital adequacy is also very high in international comparison. It's at 17.5% on a risk-weighted asset based. But one problem remains, that's what I mentioned before, it's the non-performing loans. They are slowly coming down. They are now at 35% of the loan book, but that's a high number. Let me now look into the future. Obviously, the oil sector will remain a key driver for growth. Next year, as was mentioned also before, the offshore Kashagan oil field will become productive with a very high output. So we think that growth rate of currently around 6% is a sustainable rate going forward. And not least also against the background that the oil reserves of Kazakhstan are the 11th largest of the world. Also an important element is fiscal policy. There what we see is that Kazakhstan has a very prudent fiscal policy that it even wants to foster and to make stronger. If we now look at how much debt Kazakhstan has relative to the GDP, we find that it has around 14% of debt relative to GDP. Again, if we look to other countries, that's very low. There's no advanced economy that has such a low number, and this shows that fiscal policy is quite prudent, and it's also a good thing, I think, going forward to keep it low. There are also some policy actions that were decided that maintain the good fiscal position. One of them, for instance, is that the tax share of the wealthy segment of the population is going to increase in the future. But to achieve all of these targets, more has to be done, and like in any other country, we usually call this a need for structural reforms. That's all the measures that you can take that produce a good environment for doing business and for investment. We have heard before that Kazakhstan has made good progress. It's now ranked among the top 50 most competitive nations out of 148 countries. But let me just, before I close, mention a few areas that are usually pointed out in this area. One is measures that lead to more private sector activities, reduce the importance of state-owned enterprises. Then it's an improvements to the public administration and the finance framework. And also I would mention more private-public partnerships for long-term investments. With that, let me conclude. I do think that Kazakhstan has a very prosperous and sustainable future that the authorities are committed to manage well. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ambassador, with this report, we close the session. Looking back on this morning, my impression is that, we talked a lot about Kazakhstan 20 years ago. Well, it was really a kind of, in certain respects, an invalid. It had all sorts of potential that wasn't developed, and it had real liabilities. Since then, we have heard that things have changed, and I think it's extremely important that we conclude this with Daniel Heller's report, because basically what he has said is that all this activity, the economic forum, the expo, suggests that this invalid is now very healthy and dancing, actually. So the question is this a sustainable vitality that we see? And you all heard Mr. Heller's report, Dr. Heller's report, and I take it very seriously. If he's right, and he's not the only person saying that, he's not the only expert saying that, then we can be confident that this activity is sustainable, that they're on the right track, and that this vigor that we see is not some desperate dance on the world stage before collapsing, but actually something that launches to even greater activity later. Thank you.